Studies show more college students in the U.S. are voting. Some students say professors are pushing them to vote, and that could be part of the reason.
There are a few teachers right now that are bringing the attention to us that we need a better civic education and education in what we need to know in order to vote and make decisions related to the political aspect.
The amount of college student voters more than doubled between the 2014 and 2018 midterm elections. And if that trend continues, it could heavily influence this presidential election.
We should be like one of the most active groups. Like, we have the most to lose or gain from politics because we're going to be here for a while. But it is, more people are getting interested, I think.
Many say the 2016 presidential election is likely what got more young voters talking.
As we become more divisive in America, I see how people become more enthralled with the elections and even everyday elections, and they feel motivated and primed to make an impact in those elections.
The voting process is pretty easy for college students as long as they're registered to vote where they're currently living. There are voting precincts on campus at UAH, Oakwood University, and Alabama A&M.
So if they're living on one of our campuses, those are very familiar, but if they're living off campus, it would be, of course, at the precinct where they are registered.
Even though more college students are voting, there's still some worry about how informed voters actually are.
Some of them don't know what all they're talking about. They look and they watch and they just eat up everything.
Putting the Valley First, Kelly Kennedy, WZDX News.
These voting machines will be in polling places across Madison County, but before then, the public put them to the test.
It's really a layer of transparency, so the public is ensured that we're doing a proper job with the election.
Folks marked a sample ballot of their choice. They also randomly selected a machine to tabulate their vote. Probate Judge Frank Barger says these practice voters ran a series of scenarios.
They overvoted, undervoted, marked things incorrectly, and then compared the results from their ballots to the actual report from the machine.
Sheriff Kevin Turner is an election official also. He says his duty is to make sure the ballots are secured and transported safely.
Anytime you start talking about elections or someone voting, or they want to know when they walk in there that everything is in order, and that's part of our job. That's one of our biggest responsibilities as far as I go, as far as the security goes.
Judge Barger believes this is an important part of the election.
There are many, many components to the election, and this is, we in every step of the way try to ensure that there's transparency, that both parties are engaged, that candidates are engaged, and that the public's allowed to witness any part of the process.
And every machine has been tested twice before the public has had a chance to test them themselves. Putting the Valley First, Kenisha Dees, WZDX News.